Welcome to Pharma Stability Series. If you want to understand stability studies in a simple, practical, and regulatory-focused way, you are in the right place. In this video, we will break down a key stability topic step by step, including its scientific basis, regulatory importance, and common industry expectations. So let's get started.
Have you ever thought about how a pharmaceutical drug, one that's perfectly good when it leaves the factory, can just fail months down the line? It's a huge puzzle in the pharma world. So today, we're going to put on our detective hats and solve it. And our whole investigation, it starts with one single perplexing statement. This right here, this single sentence, is what keeps a lot of people up at night in the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, think about it. A product can pass every single quality check, get the big green light for release, and yet, months later, while it's just sitting on a pharmacy shelf, it fails. That's the core mystery we're going to unpack today. So, why does a good drug go bad? Is it just a random accident? A bit of bad luck? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is almost always a big, fat no. There are specific culprits, hidden weaknesses that were actually there from the very start. And our investigation, it starts right now. Okay, so to really get this, we first need to understand the huge difference between two kinds of testing. First, you've got release testing. Think of that like taking a photograph. It tells you if the product is good at that exact moment in time. But then there's stability testing, and that's more like a movie. It tells you the full story of whether that product can actually survive its entire shelf life. And the failures, they almost always happen in that gap between the snapshot and the full movie. All right, let's meet our first suspect, the formulation itself. We're talking about the very blueprint of the drug, right? The combination of ingredients that's supposed to work together in perfect harmony. But sometimes that recipe has a fundamental flaw right from the get-go. So a flawed recipe, it doesn't just announce itself. It reveals itself through these symptoms over time. Maybe the drug's potency starts to drop, or maybe new impurities start to creep up. It could even be a change in color or texture. But here's the thing, these failures are often super subtle. It's not like the tablet just crumbles one day. It's this quiet, gradual decline until one day a test result finally crosses a critical line. And often, the problem isn't even the main star of the show, the active ingredient. It's the support crew, the excipients. These are all the binders, the fillers, the coatings, and if you choose the wrong ones, say one that's a little too reactive or one that just loves to soak up moisture, well, you've basically hired a saboteur that is going to slowly undermine the product from the inside out. And this brings us to a really crucial point. You can't just hope for the best and test for stability at the end. It doesn't work that way. A truly reliable product has to be designed for stability from the very beginning. Its long-term health is literally baked right into that initial formula. Okay, let's move on to our next suspect. This is where things get interesting. We've looked inside the drug, at its recipe. Now, let's look at the external forces that are attacking it from the outside. The environment itself can be a relentless enemy. What's the number one environmental threat? It's moisture, water. It is the silent killer of pharmaceutical stability, for sure. Once it finds a way to invade a product, even in tiny amounts, it can kick off this whole cascade of chemical reactions, degrading the drug slowly and, worst of all, invisibly. So how does it even happen? Well, it's not a flood, it's a slow invasion. A seal on a bottle that isn't quite perfect, maybe a tiny weakness in a blister pack, and over months, humidity from the air just seeps inside. By the time you actually notice the product is softened or started to cake, well, the damage is already done.
And this is exactly why packaging is so much more than just a box or a bottle. It's the product's first line of defense. It's basically its suit of armor. Teams will often blame the drug's chemistry when something goes wrong, but so many times, the real culprit was a failure in the armor. A packaging failure is a product failure, period.
And hey, it's not just moisture. Heat is another huge factor. Even for drugs that are supposed to be stored at room temperature, the real world isn't so controlled, is it? Just imagine a truck sitting on hot tarmac for hours during a summer delivery. That kind of temperature stress can seriously accelerate degradation, and it exposes those hidden weaknesses in the formula that might have otherwise gone completely unnoticed.
All right, so we've covered a flawed recipe and an environmental assault. Our final primary suspect takes us all the way back to where it all began, the factory. Because sometimes the problem is just a simple glitch in the manufacturing process.
I absolutely love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head so perfectly. You could spend months, literally months, investigating the drug's chemistry, looking for some complex reaction, when the real issue, all along, was just a simple lack of consistency on the production line.
So the key thing here is that tiny, almost undetectable variations during manufacturing can have huge downstream effects. For instance, if tablets are compressed with just slightly less force, they might be more porous, and that makes them way more susceptible to moisture. Or if a batch is dried for just a few minutes less, that tiny bit of extra moisture left behind can be enough to kickstart a degradation reaction. These small differences create a product that behaves completely differently during long-term storage.
So after all this investigation, what's the final verdict? We've rounded up our suspects, we've looked at the evidence, and now we can point to the real reasons why these good drugs go bad.
I think the most important takeaway is this. These failures are not accidents. They are not random acts of bad luck. A stability failure is a symptom, and it always points to a deeper weakness, in the product's design, in its protection, or in how it was made. It's a weakness that was there from day one.
So here they are, our primary suspects. You've got the flawed formulation, the bad recipe. You've got the environmental assault, the attack from the outside. And you have the factory glitch, the inconsistency. But you know what? Let's add a fourth, business pressure. In a super competitive market, there's always a huge push for a longer shelf life. And that can lead to pushing the scientific limits of a product's stability just a little bit further than they can actually go.
So ultimately, this kind of reframes the whole idea, doesn't it? Stability testing isn't just some regulatory hurdle you have to jump through. It's actually one of the most powerful diagnostic tools in the entire pharmaceutical world. It's a reality check that reveals the absolute truth about a product. So I'll leave you with this thought. If a stability test can reveal hidden weaknesses in science and manufacturing, what else might it reveal about a company's culture, or even its priorities?
If this helped, like and subscribe.